so caught up in the day-to-day, just keeping your head down and fighting to survive. We float by each other like ghosts every day, ignorant to the struggle, the fight with one another, complacent with the fact that our systems are broken, with the fact that the top 10 will always be first in line, the fact that we are killing our planet and allowing them to keep us divided. We must stand together and rise up. It's time we wake up, and that is a difficult truth.
Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday morning. Ooh. Sorry about that, folks. It did take me a couple of minutes there. Okay, we have quite the amount of headlines to go through. So let's get... Let's get some of those queued up. We have the IPCC report. The IPCC climate report that was released today. Today is Monday. So we're going to go over some of that. I will also post a link to the complete report in chat. We've also got some COVID news. It has been a busy weekend, so we'll catch up on all the headlines that we didn't. Alright, folks. I think this is a good place to start. Supreme Court decision could set off gerrymandering arms race. Cool. Federal judges will no longer play the role of referee when the intensely partisan once-per-decade fight over congressional map-making gets underway this year. As a result of decisions by the Roberts Court, federal courthouses will be forced to turn away even the most egregious cases of partisan gerrymandering, which could make it easier for state lawmakers to lock in politically manipulated voting maps for the next decade. In other words, if there's no if there's no referee, the referee being the judges, to kind of act as a moderator, I guess, effectively, this is going to allow states to kind of just do, or state lawmakers, whoever's in power at that point, to kind of lock in their voting maps for decades at a time, which is just not healthy. That's just not how democracy works. Honestly, at this point, I think that gerrymandering needs to be, if not outright outlawed, there needs to be a system in place that is to reduce it, that would involve a completely neutral third party that's not politically affiliated with any of them to draw up maps, congressional maps based on population, whatever, so on and so forth, however they determine, congressional maps, and then leave it like that. Some countries in Europe do this, where they don't have necessarily the political parties or lawmakers decide the voting maps. They have neutral, not affiliated, completely neutral third parties determining this, right? Probably a good idea. Now that the Supreme Court has officially retreated from the area, they've set off what will likely be an arms race between the parties to gerrymander to the fullest extent they can in states where they hold control. Right, that's because if there's going to be no arbitrary referee to say, hey, you know, that's kind of, it's a bit too much or whatnot, they're just going to be allowed to do whatever they want. Gerrymandering has occurred in the US since the time of its founding. Some scholars say that practice even predates 1812 event. Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, oh, that's where it comes from, approved a partisan district that was so oddly shaped it was said to resemble a salamander, which combined with his surname produced the term gerrymander. Huh. Interesting. Fun fact, I did not know that. The practice of drawing manipulated congressional and legislative districts for political advantage has continued since then with varying intensity as voting boundaries are redrawn to account for demographic shifts following the once per decade census. Right, so what I would say is just simply, it's just simply to outlaw it or make sure that it is done by a completely neutral third party that has no affiliation. And doesn't take into consideration, political, advantages. According to experts, however, this upcoming redistricting is likely to be even less restrained than in past years. It will combine a new degree of sophistication in map drawing technology, high levels of partisan polarization, and currently no legal recourse to fight partisan gerrymandering in federal courts as a result by the decision by the Supreme Court under Chief Justice John Roberts. So yeah, there's going to be an all-out gerrymandering fight. Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party encouraged to do so, since there will be no recourse in the courts. That's not how democracy should work. That's not how democracy works. Roberts Court has been a wrecking crew on voting rights. An expert on partisan, said David Daly, an expert on partisan gerrymandering, they really tilted the playing field away from voters and towards those who would manipulate maps for political gain. Right, and this, I mean, like, regardless, because, like, then this would encourage the Democratic Party to do the same. I mean, they have to, right? Because you best believe the Republicans are, so it's going to encourage this highly manipulated maps for political gain. So like it could potentially be that if you live in a locked in blue area, that's it. If you live in a locked in red area, that's it. Several measures in Congress, including For the People Act, would ban partisan gerrymandering. That effort is unlikely to garner enough support from Senate Republicans to overcome a GOP filibuster, particularly before the Census Bureau releases the data to the states on August 12th. Although both Democratic and Republican state-held governments have undertaken the practice, most experts believe GOP legislators stand to gain a greater partisan advantage through gerrymandering. Right, because generally speaking, they don't have the raw numbers, right? Generally speaking. A new study by the liberal nonprofit Brennan Center listed 4 states with GOP-held legislators: Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and Texas as possessing the high risk of extreme gerrymandering with new voting districts that dilute Democrats' voting power. Those states could draw anywhere from 6 to 13 new congressional districts and heavily favor GOP candidates, which would be enough for Republicans to take over the House in 2022. I think that, like, regardless, I think that's almost, like, on its way. I don't think that, I don't think that this is a thing that's going to tip it over. I think it's already not looking good. However, this may end up playing a factor as well. And according to the findings from the Democratic data firm Target Smart that were reported by progressive outlet Mother Jones. Legal experts say the Roberts Court bears some responsibility for the lack of robust federal check against anti-democratic practice, particularly after the court's 2019 decision in Rucho versus Common Cause. In a 5-4 decision along familiar ideological lines, the court's conservative majority ruled that the lawsuit over partisan gerrymandering raises a political question that is beyond the reach of the federal court, ending a stunning defeat to voting rights activists. I think that the Roberts voting rights decisions have hastened the Democratic decline, and Rucho marks a particularly dangerous turning point because it officially sanctions the pursuit of partisan advantage as a permissible exercise of state power. Orson said some justices have implied as much in prior cases, but Rucho's majority holding makes this explicit. Right, like, it's bad enough that A, gerrymandering is allowed among partisan lines. B, now there's no real check on it. There's no recourse, right? If the federal courts aren't going to get involved to adjudicate these gerrymandering cases where one could prove, like, look, this is obvious partisan gerrymandering, blah blah blah, like that's not, it doesn't exist anymore. Well, according to this ruling. So now it's just going to set off a chain of events where, well, if the Republicans are going to do it, so are the Democrats, and they're just going to draw their lines in the maps, and that's it. If you live in a red area, that's it. You live in a red area. If you live in a blue area, that's it. Some justices have implied as much prior, but this makes it explicit. Daly, the author of 2 books, including Unrigged, How Americans Are Battling Back to Save Democracy, said the country is about to face a full brunt of the Rucho decision in the upcoming redistricting. Right, this is why this is important, as this census information is about to be delivered, I think, in a couple of days. The US Supreme Court had the ability to do something about this in 2019. They not only refused, but they gave politicians a green light and an unlimited speed limit as they head into this next redistricting cycle. Now, lawmakers who are drawing these lines right now know very well that they will be able to get away with the most aggressive maps of their dreams. Right. I mean, like, it's already bad. It's already bad. And the fact that they're gonna have essentially no checks, nothing, only encourages this undemocratic behavior. I mean, there's no federal judge that's going to intervene, so... And this is a problem with our system currently, right? In order for us to have a properly functioning democracy, the institutions must be strong. In other words, they must function as they should. This is definitely breaking that. It must be transparent, and it must be inclusive, right? In other words, people need to participate. How are people supposed to, or how are people going to be encouraged to participate if they're in such gerrymandered districts that they feel like their vote will never count? Right? How are people supposed to feel like they can participate if they're going to be in such a position where, unironically, their vote probably won't matter, right? If it's a heavy blue area, it won't matter. If it's a heavy red area, it won't matter if you want to have your voice heard. Hey, Pirate Ninja, how's it going? Yo, yo. To be sure, the courts will continue to have a role to play in the looming redistricting fight at the federal level. For instance, it remains too illegal to carry out gerrymander based on race. Right. I mean, yeah, obviously by race. Like, I'm sure that this will, this is a completely other thing because of the civil rights act. You can't like discriminate against people by race. This would be an active attempt if somebody like in what was that state? I think it was it was like Georgia or North Carolina that had gerrymandering so precise that the courts had struck it down because it was so clearly racially divided that the court struck it down for a while back ago. I forgot what was the case. Man, I think it was North Carolina. Yo, hey Zimbu. How's it going? Howdy. Not bad, ready for Colorado air to be clear and breathable again. Jesus. According to Parsons, however, state lawmakers will be particularly careful to frame their map as motivated by party interests as a way to sidestep federal litigation. Sure. In the wake of Russia, I expect many states will pack districts quite aggressively and explicitly argue they're doing so based on a partisan affiliation and not race. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Here, another 5-4 decision by the Roberts Court removed another potential weapon against gerrymandering. The 2013 rule in the Shelby County versus Holder eliminated the Justice Department's power under the Voting Rights Act to screen proposed maps in jurisdictions with a history of racial discrimination in elections. Now states can enact brazen partisan gerrymandering and not worry about the racial impact of the maps, preventing pre-clearance. Right. I mean, like, how about this? How about we don't have gerrymandering? How about we do district maps drawn by a neutral party that has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats? How about that? To sidestep any of this possibility and to put a check on gerrymandering, which is extremely undemocratic as it is, how about we just do away with it? How about we do redistricting maps based on using a third party that's completely not related, completely separate from Republicans, Democrats, whatever. No party affiliations. Maps drawn by a non-English speaking native of Kenya. There you go. Perfect. In some states, it may be possible to bring lawsuits under state constitutional provisions, as happened successfully in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. There we go. I think that's what it was. North Carolina at the end of the last decade. And said Ned Foley, an election law expert at the law professor of the Ohio State University. The constitution of 30 states includes some form of requirement for elections to be free, according to National Conference of State Legislatures. Those and similar provisions, at least in theory, could create avenues for challengers to sue over partisan gerrymandering. But in states where judiciaries that have been subject to and in some cases shaped by partisan pressure, courts may be hesitant to overrule a gerrymandered map. If you're drawing these lines in Georgia or Florida or Texas, are you really going to worry about your state Supreme Court tossing them out? You know, I think I'd be willing to run that risk. Right. So the point being is that there is no universal, at this point, you can't go to the federal, you have to hope that A, your state has those provisions that you can challenge a partisan gerrymandered map. You have to hope that you're one of those 30 states. That is not all 50. And B, you have to also hope that because of those judges, because those judges in the state are elected officials. They're basically elected, right? in from what I understand, most judges in the state circuit are elected. So yeah, that kind of presents a problem, right? The Supreme Court's decision in Rucho explicitly left open the possibility that Congress could step in to curb gerrymandering. As Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in the majority, the framers gave Congress the power to do something about partisan gerrymandering. Okay, but sure. Except we don't have support from the Republicans because they don't want that. But with just 1 week until the release of the new census data sets in motion, new map drawing time is running out. The court specifically invited Congress to act to address the problem. Hopefully Congress accepts that invitation before it's too late. Yeah, well. At this point in time, I seriously doubt that they will be able to do something about it. We didn't expect a monster like this. The Dixie Fire grows to become the single largest wildfire in California history. Yep. After 4 years of homelessness, Cassia Studebaker thought she finally landed on her feet when she found a job cooking in a diner and moved into a house in the small community of Greenville. She had been renting for 3 months and hoped the stability would help her win back custody of her 14-year-old daughter, but in just one night, a raging wildfire tore through the mountain town and took it all away. Yep. Fueled by strong winds and bone-dry vegetation, the Dixie Fire grew to become the single largest wildfire in the state history. Residents of the scenic forest lands in North Carolina are facing a weekend of fears it threatens to reduce thousands of homes to ashes. Yep. That's why the air, that fire is why the air is terrible in Colorado. True. It's massive. We knew we didn't get enough rainfall and fires could happen, but we didn't expect a monster like this. Well, I mean, like... the reality is, a lot of these exacerbated weather events are due to climate change. This is like something that scientists have been talking about for quite some time now. And it just seems like now, when people are experiencing it firsthand, it's like a surprised Pikachu face, right? Yeah, the West Coast had a 2 to 3 week long heat wave to prep all the small vegetation for a huge fire. That's right. There's right now. I mean, there's right now in some of the West Coast, there's triple-digit temperatures still. The fire incinerated much of Greenville on Wednesday and Thursday, destroying 370 homes and structures and threatening nearly 14,000 buildings in the North Sierra Nevada. It had engulfed an area larger than the size of New York City. The Dixie Fire, named for the road where it started, grew overnight to an area of 725 square miles. Sunday morning, it was just 21% contained, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. 4 firefighters were taken into the hospital Friday after being struck by a fallen branch. More than 20 people were initially reported missing, but by Saturday afternoon, authorities had contacted all but 4 of them. Crews have constructed 465 miles of line around a massive blaze, Deputy Incident Commander Chris Waters said. That's about the distance from central California city of Chico to Los Angeles, but officials are only confident that about 20% of it is secured. Every bit of line that needs to be constructed, staff mopped up, and actually put to bed before we can call this fire fully contained. Erratic winds were predicted again for Sunday afternoon, but the weather was expected to settle a bit starting Monday. Damage reports are preliminary because assessment teams can't get into many areas. The blaze became the largest single fire in California's recorded history, surpassing last year's Creek Fire in the Central Valley. Right, so like broken records, back to back, from last fire season to this one. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Like, how much more evidence do you need? It's about half the size of the August complex. A series of lightning-caused 2020 fires across 7 counties that were fought together, and that state officials considered California's largest wildfire overall. The fire's cause was under investigation. The Pacific Gas and Electric Utility has said that it may have sparked when a tree fell on its power lines. Jesus Christ. A federal judge ordered PG&E on Friday to give details by August 16 about the equipment and vegetation where the fire started. Yeah, so again, if this was caused by PG&E because of their refusal to properly update their infrastructure, which from what we read previously, their infrastructure is from decades and decades old. At this point, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Cooler temperature and higher humidity slowed the spread of the fire, and temperatures topped 90 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the triple digits recorded earlier in the week. Dense smoke cover helped too, shading the area and tampering down the fire growth, but also making it harder for crews to maneuver on the ground and in the air. But the blaze and its neighboring fires within hundreds of miles of each other posed an ongoing threat. Studebaker sought shelter in an evacuation center before setting up her tent in a friend's front yard. She is counting on returning to her job if the restaurant where she works stays open. Her boss also evacuated when the town of Chester, northwest of Greenville, lost power and the smoke was so thick that it made it hard to breathe. Governor Gavin Newsom surveyed damage in Greenville Saturday, writing on Twitter that our heart ached for his town. Yeah, well, I mean, heat waves and historic drought tied to climate change have made wildfires harder to fight in the American West. Scientists have said climate change has made the region much warmer and drier in the past 30 years and will continue to make the weather more extreme and wildfires more frequent and more destructive. True. Near the Klamath National Forest, firefighters kept a close watch on small communities that were ordered to evacuate and in the path of Antelope Fire, which earlier threw up flames 100 feet high as it blackened bone dry grass, brush, and timber. It was just 20% contained. So we can go on and on about the destruction of this, the destruction of this wildfire, right? I mean, since the start of the year, more than 6,000 blazes have destroyed more than 1,260 square miles of land, more than triple of the losses in the same period of 2020. California's raging wildfires are among 107 large wildfires burning across 14 states, mostly in the West, where historic drought conditions have left lands parched and ripe for ignition. Yep. If nothing changes, this will be simply the new normal. Or worse. Or worse. Regulators refuse to step in as workers languish in extreme heat. When it gets so hot that hallucinations start and her eyes hurt and spit begins to foam, construction workers Sharon Medina disappears behind a wall of coworkers to sneak a sip of water. Discovered the hard way not to complain to the boss about working in the heat, witnessing a colleague get fired after collapsing while demolishing flooded moldy Houston homes in Hurricane Harvey's aftermath. Medina learned to stay quiet and keep her jobs. A lot of employers forget we're people even when they see we're suffering. True. Medina presses on in a city where summer temperatures and humidity routinely feels hotter than 100 degrees. She's only allowed 15 minutes for lunch. She barely has any time to go to the bathroom, even as she remodels them in other people's homes. There's no federal standard protecting people like Medina from heat, which killed 815 workers between 1992 and 2017 and seriously injured 70,000 more. What I want to know is, what is the jump from these recent years? More heat deaths are likely in the coming years as climate change turbocharges temperatures to make heat waves even hotter and last longer. The western US suffered from punishing temperatures this summer rising higher than they normally would so early in the season. The record-breaking temperatures in the Pacific Northwest would have been virtually impossible without human-caused climate change, according to modeling and global observations. That is true. We went over that report the other day. The heat wave in June killed more than 80 people in Oregon alone. 3 of them were workers, including a middle-aged trainee at a Walmart distribution center who collapsed towards the end of his shift after stumbling and having difficulty speaking. The death toll prompted the state to issue emergency worker protections, with Democratic Governor Kate Brown saying that she was concerned about a record-breaking heat wave was a harbinger of what's to come. True. That is true. This is just the opening salvos of what the new normal can look like, and like the idea that there's no serious protections for workers under these conditions is absolutely unacceptable, right? These are human beings. These are human beings. I would even go as far as saying that this is this is part of the death count due to climate change. But the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, aka OSHA, responsible for protecting laborers from workplace hazards, has ignored 3 recommendations from CDC that it would create a much-needed floor, a temperature level above which conditions are deemed inherently unsafe for worker safety. I can't believe that that's like even a thing of discussion, even a point of discussion. Like, well, yeah. I mean, how many times have we seen stories about like Amazon workers collapsing in the warehouses because it's so hot? Like, human beings aren't robots, right? So if the temperatures after a certain, degree and you're out there working, especially outside, doing a lot of like heavy labor, I mean, what did you expect? That's completely unsafe. That is just as unsafe as working without protective gear or going into like hazardous chemical conditions. Like this is people's lives, and I can't believe that nobody has taken that into consideration. OSHA has also denied similar petitions from occupational and environmental groups. A 4-month investigation by Politico and E&E News found that the agency's reluctance has extended through 9 administrations, with the bureaucracy and lack of political will combining to continually to kick the can down the road. 9 administrations. 9 administrations. Unbelievable. Even as recently as the Obama administration, policymakers rejected calls that OSHA set an enforceable standard. The Obama White House was concerned that a rule would take too long to write for understaffed and underfunded OSHA, and that would become a target for Republicans eager to paint President Barack Obama as a regulatory zealot. Well, I mean, this one's on you, bud. Y'all had the opportunity to do something about this, and you were worried about your political image? Jesus Christ. This is unbelievable. Too afraid of what the Republicans would think of you. Amazing. Recalls David Michaels, who headed OSHA at the time. Now, however, he thinks it should be done. Well, I mean, yeah. It should have been done. I was disappointed we could not take it on, Michaels said, adding, I think it is doable now because the country understands the effects of climate change and it is much more committed to addressing it than it was 10 years ago. Is it though? Is it though? I mean, is it? The Biden White House is more receptive and has included in its published regulatory agenda that OSHA will begin exploring the possibility of creating a heat standard in October. Nice meme. So, like, people are dying now, and your thought process is to, what, wait? This seems like an emergency that is currently happening now, so maybe it would be best if we kind of solve the problem now, right? But Politico and EN units found that any efforts face major hurdles around monitoring heat and setting national standards. Differences in temperature and humidity levels at which individuals, even regions of countries experience illness and lack of resource to factor in building conditions make tracking health impacts difficult. For instance, many of today's structures were built with material unsuited for the current climate, actually heating up and then retaining heat to bake indoor workers long after a heat wave has passed. Yeah, so I think that, like, in that case, then we need to inspect and revamp the way our building codes are set, right? These types of variables combined with global warming have left a far larger range of workers vulnerable to heat stress as heat waves become hotter. Like, I think that, like, if you're seeing that your workers are having difficulty, then you should be held responsible to what happens to them, right? That's simple. How about we just put that responsibility on the employers? Since it may be true that there's a lot of variables involved, alright, fine. Then, no matter where you are, the workers are your responsibility as the employer. If they are complaining about feeling bad because of the conditions there and something happens to them, you're responsible. Easy peasy. These types of variables, yes. For example, Amazon workers in the Midwest and South have pushed back against unbearable heat conditions as part of efforts to unionize. Amazon said in a statement that it has systems in place to monitor heat conditions in its workplaces and offers easy access to water breaks for employees. Yeah, nice meme. Do those systems in place include ambulances parked outside because you're too cheap to put AC in your warehouses? Without an enforceable heat standard, more workers across the country languished in stifling conditions in summer. This summer, there was nothing protecting them beyond federal guidance that merely encourages employers to provide proven life-saving measures like water breaks and cooling areas. Yeah, so it's just this simple. You put the onus on the employers. That's it. If your employee is clearly suffering from heat strokes or heat stress, and you do not give them the proper medical attention, and something happens to them like a heat stroke, you should be held liable. That's on you. Simple as that. Heat waves in major US cities have already increased from 2 per year in the 1960s to more than 6 annually in the past decade, with the average heat wave season lasting 47 days longer, according to the National Climate Assessment and Anthology of Science compiled by federal agency. Yep. The problem is expected to worsen by the middle of the century. Florida and Texas alone, the states with the largest population of construction workers, will see an additional month's worth of days where heat and humidity combine to feel hotter than 90 degrees, according to a model cited upon the Union of Concerned Scientists. Yeah, I mean, like, anecdote Andy over here, but I've lived here all my life, and I can definitely tell that over the decades it has become noticeably hotter. Noticeably hotter. Noticeably hotter. For our communities, this is the #1 job, the most accessible kind of job for immigrants in Texas. Medina said about construction work, speaking through a translator, but workers are risking everything right now and it could be preventable. We're talking about 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes something even a dog needs to take a rest, take a breath, and hydrate. Right, which again, if something happens, I think the employers should be liable. How many Americans experience heat stress isn't well understood. Incomplete hospital and regulatory records, along with the fact that heat can also exacerbate chronic medical conditions, make tracking workers who suffer from occupational heat illness difficult. There's no data on how many people who work in hot conditions aren't able to cool down at night to protect themselves. And as climate change advances, health experts are learning about how rising temperatures affect workers in different regions in the country. There's even disagreement about how best to measure heat. I mean, like, again, anecdote Andy, but like, I can go outside and do, my gardening. I can go outside and do my gardening and, I'll post more pictures and updates because, oh man, our cucumbers are doing very, very well. And we also just got a blackberry bush, or blackberry, yeah, I guess it would be a blackberry bush. So I'm very excited about that, but I can stand outside in the sun about less than an hour for sure. And I already experienced like headaches. I already experienced headaches because it's so hot. And plus the humidity, it's just unbearable. Unbearable. And it's bad enough to try to do some of the stuff under the shade, but geez, I mean, like, standing outside in like the sun unironically gives me headaches in less than an hour for sure. So I don't even know how these folks do it. The Biden administration's focus on climate change and its disproportionate impacts on health of communities of color and low-income individuals means a tipping point may be near. Well, here's the problem with this. What focus on climate change? What program or what aggressive legislation has the Biden administration put forth to meaningfully address this? What exactly what exactly has he put forth to focus on climate change? I know he's talked about it. I know he's allegedly trying to get some climate change initiatives through the budget reconciliation. Okay, maybe. But the reality is, at this point in time, at this very point in time, only save like maybe reducing reinstating some of the regulations that were during the Obama administration, reverting some of the Trump stuff, save that, which again, I mean, it has to be done, but Jesus Christ, like, that's not meaningfully addressing the roots of any of this problem. I have yet to see any aggressive legislation. It's just not there yet. I mean, when I see it, then I'll talk about it. The only thing that comes to mind that could potentially kick off something would be that budget reconciliation, which, as it progresses, we will see exactly what's in it, and hopefully those climate initiatives, what little climate initiatives are being talked about, do get included, because I've said this before, but if none of those make it, then we're in trouble, folks. Big oil companies are still actively lobbying against climate change regulations, so I wonder... True. Big oil, big farm, big animal agriculture, all of these folks have immense money and have no problems throwing it, just so that they can keep one extra penny in their pocket. Sectors particularly exposed to heat stress: construction, farming, warehouse, and factory work are layered with social injustice, income inequality, and workers' rights to choose. True. President Joe Biden is committed to focusing on, which, again, yeah, sure, great, but you've got to deliver. you've got to deliver on something, on some of these things, right? I can't think of anything he's done other than talk about doing something about climate change to towns with broken auto industries. Right, like, he's talked about it, sure, but I don't really know of any proposed serious legislation to address any of this. So that's the problem, right? How's it going, Tandera? Presidents have been talking about this for generations. Yeah. Well, I mean, some have. Some have. Howdy, anarchist. The point being is that this is the president now, and he is the one who has the Congress, the Senate, Good morning. I saw Biden recently promised to have half of the vehicles. Yeah, sure. We hey Memius, we talked about this, which is fine, but like, the questions then become like, wait, hold on. What does that mean? Does that mean like electric vehicles get immense subsidies so that they can be affordable? Because like electric vehicles usually are way more expensive and inaccessible to everyday folks. So like I don't know. It's such an easy position. He doesn't have to lift a finger and give all the lip service. You just gotta do it and blame it on Manchin or something. Yeah, well, Manchin is to blame. Well, one of the factors is President Joe Manchin. The IPCC just released a new report and it's pretty grim. Yep, we are going to kind of talk about it, and I also have the complete IPCC report. Maybe on Saturday when I have a full range of time, or maybe just make one day, like maybe tomorrow, make a complete dedicated like stream to just reading the IPCC report, the entirety of it. But I do have it, and we are gonna kind of talk about it. Memmius, how's it going? Biden and this administration isn't equipped to deal with the scope of this climate catastrophe. I agree. I think you're right. And key members of the administration, including Vice President Kamala Harris and Doug Parker, the administration's nominee to lead OSHA, have expressed support for national heat standards in the past. Yeah, it means nothing to me unless you can give me something, legislation. Like legislation. Biden promised Detroit, Flint, Pontiac a comeback of the auto industry, but electronic, and I think those companies are actually doing it, but I haven't seen anything. Well, yeah, I mean, like, again, great. I think that we should strive to reduce the use of fossil fuels in as many ways, as quickly as possible. But what does that mean when we say we're going to build a whole bunch of electric vehicles? Okay, great, excellent. But like, are they going to be subsidized so that people can actually afford them over gas vehicles? I don't know. Like, what does that mean? But even 7 months in office, progress has been fitful. Lamau. White House National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy told Politico and E&E News that the Biden administration is working closely with the Labor Department, which oversees OSHA, where the heat standard is a consideration. McCarthy said it was unclear when a delivery mechanism might be ready. She's also taking a lead role in an interagency working group on extreme heat, and that the White House established late last month. We certainly recognize that the heat stress is not just a problem for the labor community, but it's also a problem for our seniors, and it significantly, really quite impact people. It's a significant and really quiet impact because people don't acknowledge it. Very often you lose people without even knowing it and reporting it and counting it. Yeah, because it just happens. Like, especially that like the new norm is going to be extended periods of like triple digit temperatures in most areas out in the Pacific West, and maybe across the country. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. But we definitely know and see triple digit temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, I think it's time we kind of address it, right? Sadly, Danarchist, I tend to lean on believing that it's probably the case. And I really am frustrated. And I'm really frustrated that this is where we are. This is the position that we were backed into. Laborers are particularly vulnerable to heat due to the strenuous nature of their work. Physical activity makes it difficult for the body to cool itself down, which gets dangerous when temperatures and humidity rise. The results are overheating, can range from dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and a fast heart rate to deadly heat stroke. Yeah, so like I literally got headaches. That makes it difficult. The whole point about how we got here is that we need to be dependent on automobiles. There needs to be infrastructure spending on public transportation, bus, trams, and trolleys. Yes, I would not. I don't disagree. And those public transportation need to be green and as little reliant on fossil fuels as possible. If they can be completely renewable, then excellent. I know that there's like electric and hybrid buses. They just need to be readily available, accessible, and efficient. But that requires spending on infrastructure and public transportation. But I think you're right, Tanarchus. I would be 1,000% in favor of that. I can't believe how long we've known about climate change. How we literally lifted a finger and just keep going. Yeah, because it's so we understand. I think that like we are capable of understanding the severity of the situation. I just think that most people, in a broad sense, don't really see the big picture. And like when they're being completely bombarded on the airwaves, all this climate change denial, when oil companies and big farm agriculture astroturfs airwaves saying that, oh yeah, we're doing everything we can, we're clean energy, and then like they put like gas, clean gas, and all this other like astroturfing, people don't really like understand. That's all they know. Furthermore, who has time to think about any of this when a lot of folks are too busy stuck in a hamster wheel, working 2 jobs, 60, 70 hours a week just to stay afloat? They have no idea who their representatives are. They don't have time to care about what any of this means, and they don't participate because they can't. Not in the sense that like, if you're one of the folks who are like, oh yeah, I understand that this is all important and stuff, but like you shrug it off because like I need to put food on the table. where rent is coming up. Like I can't be bothered by like climate change, you know, and like a lot of people think that way. Unfortunately, there's also a section of the population who is like, I just want to grill, bro. I just want to grill, bro, and like they completely check out. I don't know. I think another factor of it is people ignore it or put it in the backseat of their head as a defense mechanism, because once they realize the magnitude of the problem, it gets scary. It gets scary real fast. It gets scary real fast. Heat can exacerbate pre-existing conditions, pre-existing respiratory and heart conditions, and it can hit lower-income workers, particularly if they're less able to afford running air conditioning. On hot nights, straining their bodies during restless sleep. True. Hey Heat, how's it going? Yes. Coming in hot with a truth bomb. Morning. Lavishing and doomerism is kind of an escape. True, in and of itself, but some sectors face darker dangers. Construction workers are just 6% of the American workforce, while accounting for 36% of all occupational health-related deaths. But the heat threat is spreading to other occupations and locations too. People working at indoor warehouses that lack air conditioning or meatpacking facilities are at risk, especially as cooler northern latitudes face the effect of warming temperatures. Yes, I've said this before, where these warehouses, if it's just mildly hot, these warehouses become like ovens. They literally become ovens. When it's cold, they become like freezer boxes. I know this because I used to work in one. My dad works in one. But even if the Biden administration decides to write a standard, it's an open question whether OSHA is up to the challenge. Staffing and working inspections have plummeted, raising concerns about whether it could realistically police a new heat regulation. In 1990, there was one OSHA employee per 51,765 workers. Jesus Christ. In 2019, there was one OSHA employee per 88,977 workers, according to analysis by the Revolving Door Project, a progressive policy group. I mean, wait. So let me get this straight. Like, are there folks like unironically arguing like about big government? Wait, this is kind of like just kind of hitting me right now. Are there folks like literally unironically arguing for like, you know, big government, when in reality we have like nowhere near. I mean, like, we have one OSHA worker per 88,977. $88,977. Jesus Christ. The turn of the century, we don't have laws, and OSHA is a joke. True, it seems like it. I would not be surprised, that anarchist. Yeah, one person to monitor multiple states is such BS. True. This is like the same problem with like the IRS and the NLRB that have absolutely no teeth to enforce like these things. Obviously, the standard is useless without enforcement. True. And yeah, said Julie Fulcher, worker, health advocate for Public Citizen, and a government watchdog group that has petitioned OSHA for a heat safety standard. The teens are more educated and concerned about this shit than a lot of grown adults right now. True. Unironically true. CDC's National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health first recommended that OSHA write heat-specific protections for workers back in 1975, when Gerald Ford was president. Since then, the agency has made similar recommendations 2 more times. The most recent was in a 200-page report in 2016 that included new research on how heat stress presents itself in laborers. The report expressed concern about the effect of future global warming in 2016. Just because the heat is rising doesn't mean people are able to stop working outdoors, and as temperature increases, wait. It is expected there will be more heat-related injury. Wait. How can you I don't get this quote. I don't get this quote. Just because the heat is rising doesn't mean that people are able to stop working outdoors. Wait, but if the heat makes it so that it is almost borderline impossible to work and is giving people heat strokes, yeah, that's kind of... Wait. I don't get this. It is expected that there'll be more heat-related injuries and illnesses, and that's true. There's hope that they won't be in charge of the government, in time. True. Oh yeah, there's definitely hope. As long as there's time on the clock, then there's time on the clock. Therefore, we should keep trying. They're still forced to? Okay, is that what that means? Because, like, I don't know. Hey, you know what? Like, I think that if that's true, if they're forced to, you know, it's like a real, you know what's like a real detriment to your workforce? And I know this might sound like crazy, but do you know what's like a massive detriment to your workforce? Fucking death, dude. Yes, Pirate Ninja. Exactly. Stay fresh, drink water, eat biofruits, breathe, and do sport. I literally have no idea what that means. How do you harvest without working outside? Yes, you have to do it at night. You have to do it at night. In fact, when we went over the article about crops failing, when we went over the article about crops failing in the Pacific Northwest, what they had to do, because of the extreme heat that was going on at that time, they had to go at the crack of dawn, as early as possible before the sun, to A, save the fruits, and B, be able to work at all. Yeah, it's like double speak. I mean, like, I don't get it. NIOSH reports show that providing workers with rest, shade, and increasingly frequent intervals as temperature rise can save lives. Yeah, no kidding. So too can acclimating workers to the heat by gradually increasing the time of... Wait, what? Wait. Is this the real life? Hold on. I'm sorry. So too can acclimating workers to the heat by gradually increasing the time that they're laboring or the intensity of their work in high temperatures. So your solution is just like, you know what? Screw it. You're gonna have to just get used to it. Wait. Wait, this isn't... Hold on. Like, I'm sorry. Like, there is a level of acclimating, and I understand that, but like, you can't acclimate if your workforce is literally incapable of operating in these high temperatures that are only going to become the norm, right? I mean, like, yeah, unironically acclimate. Like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Hey, Rundo. Climate science sucks and the world is burning, but we're getting siestas now. It may be a trade-off. True. True. How do you get used to it? You don't. I don't know. Like, what do you... Wait, this doesn't make any sense. I suppose, like, there are degrees where you may be able to, like, kind of operate under these conditions, but the human body has limits, right? Like, do they really expect people to just be, I don't know, robots or something? Like, I don't get it. I think they're just saying that people need to gradually get used to heat. Yeah, but how? Like, even if we do manage to kind of be able to withstand it, that doesn't change the fact that there's only so much limits that we can take. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that even like the fittest of the fit, the healthiest of the healthy, can't do full shifts in triple digit temperatures. Even the fittest of fit, the, you know, most capable of folks, I'm not sure if they can operate like full on shifts non-stop in triple digit temperatures. I'm just saying. Right. I guess like it may be possible, but like, I don't know. Even like the fittest, like folks who work day in and day out in warehouses, they don't get used to it. Like, I don't know. My dad has been working in a warehouse. Like, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. It literally becomes an oven. An oven. And there is no getting used to that. He's been doing it for decades. Literally his whole life. Well, work life that he's been here in this country. You don't get used to it. They were letting runners from the Olympics scrap water and wet towels to cool off, and it wasn't even triple digits in Tokyo. Right. Olympic runners. Like, I don't know. Hey guys, just like, get used to it, bro. Like, I may get to break out my robes again. Long, loose clothing is very good in the heat. Interesting. Gamers. Microplastics. That's another whole other problem. Heat. NIOSH further recommends that employers take people's pre-existing health conditions into greater consideration. That could mean assigning people at greater risk to less strenuous tasks on hot days. Okay, but when the hot days are like the norm, what do you do? The recommendation not only saves lives but money. One 2019 study in the Journal of Occupational Environmental Medicine showed that implementing NIOH recommendations for a group of traffic, park, and recreation, solid waste, and utility workers all employed by one municipality in Central Texas between 2009 and 2017 decreased the incidence of heat illness by 91%. Median workers' compensation costs also fell 50% during that period, from $416 per claim to $208. But OSHA has never acted on NIOSH recommendations. We did the best job we could by putting this document out there, but I don't work for OSHA, and it is up to another agency to decide what they want, if they want to do something further with it. Everyone is equal, but some are more equal. Isn't that from Animal Farm? Also, if you're expected to work in slightly worse conditions, shouldn't that come with a wage increase, even if you call it something like silly like hazard pay? Ha! Lamau. Lamau. Oh. Oh, Pirate Ninja. Lamau. These folks aren't going to do any of that. These folks aren't going to do any of that. We literally have sweatshops like the Amazon and Frito-Lay warehouses. They play with these folks' lives like they're robots. True. Where's labor laws? Nowhere to be found because the NLRB is completely defanged. The NLRB is like completely defanged. But, you know, let's continue to talk about how big government is everywhere. Bought and paid for it? Well, maybe, but I think the even greater problem is that it just doesn't have the teeth. It just doesn't have the teeth to enforce any of these labor laws. Hey Darknet, the only thing that determines wages is the bare minimum to get people to show up every day. True. We actually see that we're actually seeing that play out in real time, because like even though there are a lot of job openings, people aren't biting. You got to give them more. Some are increasing wages. Some are offering more benefits, like actual benefits like healthcare and all this other stuff, pay time off and things like that to lure employees. So yeah, you're gonna have to give them something to, what's the minimum I can pay somebody to show up every day? Like all these people with, all the people with big dogs would pay me $10 to pick up dog shit, rather than people who thought $10 was too much since they had a smaller dog. Worse conditions require more compensation. Right, like logically, Senbu, logically, yes. However, these folks, nah. Didn't they have to, like, enforce hazard pay for the people who are working during the pandemic? I could have sworn there was, like, a fight over that, too. Like, they just won't do it. Logically, they should. But Realistically, nah. Realistically, nah. Industry representatives say those uncertainties preclude regulation. U.S. Chamber of Commerce Vice President for the Workplace Policy, Mark Friedman, said the issue hasn't progressed far enough at OSHA for his group to press the agency for any specific solutions. Friedman said he's concerned that the subjective nature of heat means OSHA regulations can make employers liable for factors beyond their control. Wait. Okay, so I'm sorry. Hold on. Here's how we solve all of this problem, right? If your workers fall ill to heat and because you refused to provide the conditions necessary to work, you are liable. That's it. Since we're getting caught up in all of this like subjective, like, quote, what is heat? Bro, you know what? If your worker starts to feel ill and you continue to make them work and something happens to them, you're liable. Period. Full stop. Don't care. Defining a heat hazard can be subjective. Wait. It gets into what is going on with the employee's life, and I don't think employers want to ask or employees want to be asked those questions. Is this like unironically that's a HIPAA meme? Wait, is this the HIPAA meme? A HIPAA violation meme? If your employee is telling you they are feeling bad because of the heat, which is very obvious, and something happens to them, that's on you. Did OSHA say it's beyond the... Yes. Did you just go through a divorce that would explain why you're so heated? Like, what? Yeah, I like, wait a minute. This is literally the HIPAA violation meme. This is literally what it is. I don't... What? There's a lot you can do to measure what is going on with the heat in the workplace. When I worked for engine rooms, we would do wet and dry bulb temperature checks all the time to check the conditions. Yeah, so there's a process to this. And furthermore, if we have the capability of issuing, that's a HIPAA violation, pirate. We also check the dry bulb heat every hour. So, like, if we have the capacity to make the determination of sending out public service announcements, like people will get texts on their phone that say, hey, there's a heat hazard, please stay inside. Like, clearly, there's some objectivity in terms of like how we measure these things to be able to then determine to mount a public service announcement to then say, hey, there's a heat hazard, stay inside. Like, wait, this isn't... I'm sorry, like, how do we get to like defining a heat hazard can be subjective? So then explain to me how we even like determine these things. This is beyond stupid. Jesus Christ. Rather than writing hate-specific standards, OSHA for years has relied on its so-called general duty clause, which broadly requires employers to ensure workplaces are safe from recognized hazards, but pursuing bad actors is challenging without specific heat standards. OSHA has cited employers only after heat kills or hospitalizes workers. Then what's the point? These aren't things that you can these aren't situations that you should be reacting to. These are situations that you should be preventing. I don't understand. Does not compute, folks. Does not compute. Preventative, thank you. We're also given thinner, more breathable, fire-retardant coveralls for tropical environments, told to wear something at least a size too large to allow billowing and breathability. Yeah, there you go. What will it take for America to change how workers are treated and paid? Clearly, people dying isn't enough. It will take a lot of on-the-ground political will to build, and the unionization in this country is abysmal, so we probably should work on that. My friend works in a smelter, and to prevent injury, they're only allowed to work for 20 minutes at a time in the high heat areas. Right, so like, clearly we have standards that we could employ to kind of mitigate the situation. This isn't like some kind of, quote, subjective hazard, right? Like, what does this even mean? If we have the technology and the capability of sending out massive public service announcements to say, hey, listen, there's a heat hazard, stay inside, then clearly we have the ability to determine what that heat hazard is. So therefore, if there is a heat hazard in place, then all of this type of work stops. Plain and simple. And if you continue to push workers to work even past that, even though there's a heat hazard, then whatever happens to them is on you, or should be on you as the employer. The agency's review of Commission 2019 hamstrung OSHA from even using that authority, questioning whether the clause covered an individual employee's experience with heat. It ruled that a hire company could not be held responsible for a worker's heat-related death because the company did not know about the employee's pre-existing heart condition. Okay, but you do know that massive heat exacerbates these conditions. This isn't... Wait, you can't cop out by saying that you didn't know about a pre-existing condition if you know that heat exacerbates any potential pre-existing conditions in the first place. So, this is... Okay. Ooh. Therein lies one of the main hurdles, pinpointing the role heat stress plays in an injury or death. While heat can kill on its own, experts say that heat triggering underlying health problems is far more common. So if we know this... Wait. If we know this, then we have to operate on the presumption that triple-digit temperatures might exacerbate underlying health conditions. Therefore, hello... Is this like such a difficult concept to understand? If experts say that the problem, even though heat can obviously kill on its own, make it so that you can get heat stroke or whatever on its own, fine, we separate that, we know that. But if it's more common to know that it can exacerbate any underlying health problems, wouldn't it then be the logical thing to do is to take that into consideration as a default? If you know that that's the most common problem, is that it exacerbates underlying health problems. If you know that the problem isn't necessarily that somebody can just die of heat, which can happen, but what's far more common, if you know that what's far more common is the triggering of underlying health problems, then you have to operate under that premise. You operate under the information that you know. This is just like I mean, I don't know. Like, is this like a hard concept to understand? Like, I'm pretty sure a child can understand this. Generally speaking, when dealing with unknowns, you have to use what you do know, right? We're a society of underlying health concerns, true, but like, again, you have to assume, you have to operate under the presumption that this heat will exacerbate underlying health conditions, which can then lead to hospitalization or death, right? I don't like this isn't like a hard to grasp logical conclusion, right? Doctors may miss warning or signs or fail to assign cause to heat. For those reasons, experts say data on occupational heat-related illness and deaths aren't capturing the scale of the problem. Okay, but again, operating on the knowledge that we know that heat and heat is a cause of health, is a health hazard. We know that heat by itself can cause health problems. And if you know that the most common issue with the heat is that it exacerbates any pre-existing conditions, then you assume or you operate on the premise that that's what's going to get you, right? Michaels oversaw how the OSHA implemented its rule. When he led the agency under Obama, he's now backing a petition under his former agency to act, despite rejecting a similar petition for heat-specific standards when he ran OSHA. Nice meme. Michael said he wanted OSHA to work on heat standards after the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The agency used heat guidelines crafted by the U.S. military to ensure safety for cleanup workers toiling in impermeable suits. Sometimes they work for only 10 minutes before resting another 50 minutes in tents provided by BP, as heat and humidity along the Gulf Coast pushed a real feel above 90 degrees. And this is above 90. Yeah, no. Mike Lindell is a clown, and so are you. Where we were concerned it would kill them. And mind you, this is only 90 degrees. But the guidelines worked, no one fell ill, and even if it took a little longer, they had to use more workers. Under Michaels, OSHA started a heat awareness campaign, complete with a smartphone app to suggest how many rests and water breaks workers should take based on temperature at their location. Oh, wait, hold on. So there is an objective way to measure these things. The Biden administration is exploring its options. It means nothing until I see legislation. In addition to flagging the issue in published regulatory report, Biden has called for a tenfold increase, $110 million for CDC's public health and climate spending. Okay, you can call for it, but where's the legislation? And $1.5 billion to mitigate and map urban heat stress. Biden has also created an office within the Department of Health and Human Services to focus on climate change and health inequities. Cool. What exactly have they done again? When Harris was in the Senate, she sponsored legislation that would require OSHA to write heat protection for workers. Cool. Sponsoring the legislation because it's like doomed to fail or like politically expedient at that time. Did it pass? Where was that? Why aren't you like championing it now that you're the vice president? I mean, Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, Lamau. Don't worry, we'll get to this. Won't someone please think about the profits for shareholders? Please. Pause on student loan payments extended through January. Okay. The Biden administration on Friday issued what it says to be the final extension to a student loan moratorium that has allowed millions of Americans to put off debt payments during the pandemic. Under the action, payments on federal student loans will remain paused through January 31st of 2022. Interest rates will remain at zero during that period, and debt collection efforts will be suspended. Those measures have been in place since early in the pandemic, but were set to expire September 30th. In announcing the decision, President Biden said the economy is recovering at a record rate, but for who? He said the road recovery will be longer for some Americans, especially those with student loans. So, hey, bud, pal, my dude, if you acknowledge that the road to recovery will be more difficult for those with student loans, this may be like, I don't know, maybe a radical idea, but like, then wouldn't be the solution then be like, hey, maybe we should alleviate that problem if you acknowledge it. Wait, if you acknowledge that this is a problem, deal with it. Alio with the 10 biddies, thank you so much, I appreciate that. If you know and acknowledge that this will lead to a longer recovery for some Americans, especially, quote, those with student loans, then hey, I've got like a brilliant 200 IQ plan. Eliminate that roadblock. This will give the Department of Education and borrowers more time and more certainty as they prepare to restart student loan payments. It will also ensure a smoother transition that minimizes loan defaults and delinquencies that hurt families and undermine our economic recovery. The policy applies to more than 36 million Americans who have student loan debts held by the federal government. The collective debt totals more than 1.3 trillion, according to the latest Education Department of data. Questions about its moratorium have been swirling in recent weeks as the expiration date approaches. Even as the economy improves, there have been concerns that borrowers are not ready to start payments again. Yeah, I mean, like, most folks are still just starting to go back to work. And furthermore, since you failed to address the rent problem, you failed to address any type of, like, rent or mortgage that some of these folks may have, you failed to address any of that, how are they supposed to start paying on debt when they can't even afford rent or mortgage? They're not making these payments. Like, this is unbelievably backwards. I wonder if everything would look like if whole generations weren't shackled by student debt and allowed to fully participate in the economy. I mean, it would be nice. It'd be a good. I think it would be a good stimulus to the economy. Thanks for the shout out, of course. Appreciate that. I appreciate the biddies, and I appreciate you hanging out, Alio. This is so like, I don't know. If you understand that this is a problem, then just address it. I don't get it. Democrats just really want to lose in 2022. I mean, it seems like that's pretty much on the cards. Even as the economy improves, concerns that, yeah, they're not ready to start payments because, like, hey, folks, because the rent assistance and all this other problems weren't properly dealt with, there are still major issues for states to start major issues on the deployment of all this aid, and folks are on the verge, about millions of them, about to be evicted and stuff like that. They're definitely not ready to start making payments on student loans if they have them, right? Like, these folks are just trying to keep a roof over their head. Several Democrats, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren, urged Biden to extend the moratorium through at least March of 2022. In a June letter, they said restarting payments would drag down the pace of our economic recovery. Except, sure, but like, you have the power to do something. You have the power to do something. I know that you can't, from my understanding, unilaterally just Thanos-snap all of it, but there's definitely stuff that you can do, and there's definitely stuff that you, as the current administration in power, can do to leverage the Department of Education to definitely handle this in a way that actually ends up helping Americans, right? Like, I don't know, dude. Do you like have any interest in solving any of these problems, or like, what's the deal here? I mean, that was the whole purpose of delivering the Senate in 2020. Motel coffee, nice. Schumer, Warren, and Ayanna Pressley applauded the extension in a joint statement, saying it provides relief to millions of borrowers facing a disastrous financial cliff. Yes, it doesn't. What it does, realistically, is it doesn't stop you from going over the cliff. It just gives you more road to keep going, right? That's what it is. So instead of the cliff being like, I don't know, 3 feet away, now you have 10 feet away before you go off the cliff. Hello? Can we just provide? Can we just like eliminate that altogether? Because like it seems to me that there is something you can do, right? Clearly. If you have the capacity, which again, it's good that he did, but if you have the capacity to eliminate a lot of these like payments, especially for folks under his purview of like the federal government, for federal workers, I think he eliminated a lot, like at least chopped off some of that student debt, especially student debt that had to do with fraudulent universities and stuff like that. It stands to reason that this strenuous times, this unprecedented times, would call for some emergency action to then get the Department of Education working on something to try to like prevent said cliff, right? To prevent said financial cliff. Democrats are afraid to govern for fear they will offend somebody. True. Time limits on loans, but jobs don't pay enough for high-paying. True. That's also a thing. It's all optics to seem like they can do only so much, but as if they didn't have the power to end the burden. Right, but that kind of like falls flat when we saw, I'm sorry, there's nothing that we can do in extending the moratorium. Also, we're extending the moratorium till the end of whatever. Like, that falls flat. I'm sorry. It's not like we're seeing this like play out, and like the people are going to be incredibly aggravated. And you know what? When 2022 comes along and they get swept, I mean, what are we supposed to say, right? I'm here to, hey, Sir Goody, I'm here to rant. Simply say, let's have this to my, Jesus. I hope you're okay. 2000, what? Holy shit. 2,400 for a wrist surgery to remove a cyst, and that's not even afterwards. That's just for the surgery. I have decent insurance. Fuck American, fuck corporate for profit healthcare. I agree. For profit healthcare shouldn't even be a thing. I'm sorry. Like $2,400, and like, what's the alternative? You just have to live with that. Can you even, like, this is so beyond fucked. I'm sorry, Surfer Go Gritty. We just went over. We just went through that with the We just went through that with the co-host. We just went through that with the co-host. The co-host, literally, unironically, almost died because she had a small infection that she thought was nothing. Didn't really have the money to go to the doctor, so she just felt like she could handle it, and has been on weeks of antibiotics, and it progressed because she couldn't pay to go to the doctor, and it progressed into her lungs, gave her sinusitis, bronchitis, and fuck, I forgot what else. And she couldn't pay. She couldn't pay to see the doctors. In fact, it was so bad. We had to make the executive decision of taking some money from the stream to pay for medicine and to pay for a visit. Like that's how we did it. That's how we got her the meds. The meds and the doctor visit was technically thanks to you guys. Because of that extra money, I was able to just kind of like funnel it for her. Thanks for the kind words. I'm just pissed. Well, you should be. You know what? You should be. Hey, Chibeer Hey, Bird Crochet. How's it going? It shouldn't have to be this way. It really shouldn't. Your healthcare shouldn't rely on the your healthcare, your health, your basically quality of life shouldn't be on the hands of effectively a charity and GoFundMe and you know, relying on folks' kindness and generosity, which again, it's not that it's unappreciated, but holy shit, if it wasn't for you guys, we'd have to figure out something. The co-host would have had to figure out something. So yeah. Jesus Christ, like, it shouldn't be this way. It really shouldn't be this way, but you know. I mean, and I'm sure everybody who lives here has a story like that. Everybody who lives here has a story like that. Like, it's just to what degree it affects you, and like the degree of effed you are, right? Like, I have a story like that, you know. My girlfriend, my partner, had to fight hours between pharmacies, between insurance, because her insurance switched, because her job decided that they were going to switch insurances, and because she relies on her job for insurance. When they do that, it created a whole storm, a whole poop storm, and she had to fight for hours to get all of these things in communication: the insurance company, the doctor, the pharmacy. Then the pharmacy said it wasn't actually this pharmacy because your insurance is actually now with this pharmacy, which then they kicked it over to this pharmacy, which actually you had to contact them here because you were in the incorrect location. Meanwhile, she's going without her medication for weeks. Meanwhile, she had to go without her medication, which she needs, for weeks, folks. And the cherry on top is that the coupe no longer takes care of it. Now she has to pay $80 for it. Cool. Nice meme. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Going between like making phone call after phone call and after phone call, keeping like track of it, because if she didn't like keep track of it, then who knows? So yeah, I'm sure we all have a story like that if you live here. And now the new insurance doesn't even completely cover it. Now you have to pay money when before it did, because her job decided to switch insurance companies and blah blah blah. Like all of this, like it's just a nightmare. It's just unironically a nightmare. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this, because like, wait, what if we didn't have that? Wait, what if we didn't have the extra $80? Then what? Then what? The payment pause has saved the average borrower hundreds of dollars per month, allowing them to invest in their futures and support their family needs. I don't know about this investing in the future. It seems to me like just staying alive. Okay. The Trump administration has initially suspended federal student loan payments in March 2020 and later extended it through January of 2021 by the move to continue it to September 30th, soon after taking office. The Education Department itself has raised concerns about administrative hurdles around suddenly restarting loan payments. In a November 2020 report, the department said it would be a heavy burden to reactivate millions of loans at the same time. It warned that some borrowers would likely fall behind on their payments, at least initially. On Friday, the Education Department said the final extension provides enough time to restart the process smoothly and gives borrowers a definitive end date to plan for. Yeah, and then what? Are you going to provide like enough rent? Is that rent assistance supposedly that you distributed to all the states going to be out in time? How are these folks supposed to be worrying about student loan payments when they're just trying to, I don't know, have a roof over their head? As our nation's economy continues to recover for a deep hole, this final extension will give students and borrowers time they need to plan to restart, and ensure a smooth pathway back for repayment. Student advocates welcome the extension, saying it's a victory for borrowers who have suffered financial hardships during the pandemic. Sure, I mean, like, it is something. However, I'm not convinced that this is solving the root of the problem. I mean, like, of course, the alternative would be then to just say, all right, start paying up now. Sure, I do agree with the extension. However, I have a feeling that there could be so much better ways of addressing this than what they are currently doing. Students and family faced immense challenges last year, but American economy continues to recover, and there's no rational excuse for continued extensions of non-payments of student loans. Hey, Peter Parker. Senator Richard Burr, top Republican on the Senate Health, Education, and Labor and Pension Committee. But the Biden administration announced that the relief as it faces mounting pressure from some Democrats to erase huge swath of student debt. Schumer and Warren have urged Biden to use his authority to cancel $50,000 in student debt for all borrowers, saying it would jumpstart the economy and help families hit hard by the pandemic. I would say, true, Memias. I would say, like, listen, if you acknowledge, right, that this is a financial cliff that people are potentially going over, and simultaneously you just happen to have the ability to do something about it, why are you just giving extension of the road instead of like 3 feet from financial cliff to 10 feet, right? You give that extension, maybe they can find out how to turn the car around before they fly off the cliff, right? Or take the cliff away out of the equation entirely, given the fact that you have that current power. It's just like, I don't get it. Why is everyone trying to jumpstart the economy? Because unfortunately, a lot of people are dependent are a lot of people's like just straight up like life is dependent on whether or not they can put food on the table, which whether or not they have a job, which whether or not like it's just like that's the reason why I don't like that it's focused on that, but I think that for a time the American dream was real to a degree. Yeah, sure, there was a time where one full-time job provided everything that you needed. Everything that you needed to just have a life, right? There was a time that that was a thing, James Napper. Which, by the way, welcome. But not here. Not in this timeline, folks. He supports canceling up to 10,000 in debt, but has argued it should be done by Congress. Okay, so now we're shifting blame. Congress currently is being held by the Democratic Party, so therefore, fine. You want to shift the football to the Congressional House? Okay, where is the Congress on this? Right? Where is the Democratic Party on this? If they have the House, right? And why, if so, why is the House, in knowing that if then the Biden administration isn't going to do it, then they should act, right? If it's within their purview, right? So then, okay, where is the attempt at action here? Is my question. It's not even a percent. Yeah, sure. I mean, like, of course. But the fact that we're, like, fighting for this is absurd. I mean, if it's 10,000, I'll take it over nothing, but it's absurd that we're even, like, fighting for just one. Jesus Christ, for a crumb. Incidentally, in many ways, the affluence of generation that burdens the current one, like the pension benefits, for example, the boomer generation had and sometimes went through struggle, are now being paid by an already struggling current generation. There's a cruel irony in that same generation also owns most of the property and rents it out to the youth. Yeah, that's true. Oh man, we're effed. So yeah, TLDR, clearly a lot of blame shifting, but not enough action to address this problem. Get vaccinated or angry, and that's understandable, but unproductive, health experts say. So I'm gonna speed run through some of this. The TLDR of this is like, and I think I'm following to this. Like, it's getting really frustrating to try to like seriously and patiently tell people that they should just that they should just follow experts who obviously know more than they do, and it's okay. That's why they're there. It's okay to not know things, and it's okay to hey Hildebeest, how's it going? It's okay to defer to the folks that know better. But please make sure you check out twitch.tv/Hilda_Beast. They are the one of the hardest working mods besides Frames on the platform. So I understand the frustration and the anger because I'm unironically sometimes falling to it. But we have to do everything that we can to seriously make people understand that it's the right choice for them. I don't know how, but we have to focus on trying to get people, if they're willing to listen, because obviously sometimes you're just not going to reach some of those folks. But this affects all of us, right? This affects all of us, so it should be our prerogative to try to solve this problem, right? The pinch, gotcha. Ex-conservative MP who talks about why particular upwards funnels of money from the young people is bad for society. Yeah, it's the income inequality. There's no way I'm getting it. Is there like a logical reason why that would be? Is there like a seriously logical reason that's based on reality why you wouldn't? I'm getting my second Moderna shot on Wednesday. Good luck, Peter Parker. But that's the thing, Taco. By being forceful, then you just entrench their position. I think that the best thing that you can do is to start requiring like for example for schools, for flights, things like that, like squeeze. Yeah, like just because you already got it doesn't mean you can't get it again. And furthermore, it also doesn't necessarily address the variants that are around. So you may be fine for the variant that you got it for, but it doesn't protect you. It's experimental. There's literally no evidence for that, as the vaccine has been thoroughly vetted. And tested. All of them have been rigorously vetted and tested by the FDA. So there's just, at that point, you can't say it's experimental. This technology, mRNA technology, and has been in existence for, at this point, I believe 20 years now. So there's plenty of data behind it. So there's really no experimental vaccine going on right now at this point. Yes, join the Discord. If you want to talk about it, because I can't have this on my stream, if you want to talk about it, you can whisper me. But none of this denialism here. I just can't do it on my stream. Are there chuds in chat? Yeah. Anti-vaxxers. As an example, my family is anti-vax. They're not going to listen to facts and logic. They're too far gone. Well, then you hit them with the feelies if they're not willing. Those are not experimental. We have vaccinated a few billion people. We got lots of data. Not only that, like the actual technology behind the mRNA vaccines has been around for about 2 decades. I'm editing a YouTube video. Noticed I was wearing a difficult t-shirt. Maybe I add. Holy yikes. What? Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. That makes me feel so... that makes me feel good, Hilda Beast. Thank you. Man, that turned my mood around. May I add your links? Of course. Absolutely. Quote, ad revenue? True. Pay up ADT. I put the talk from David Woods in Discord in case anyone wants to watch it. About 45 minutes long, so maybe not the best for stream. Oh yeah, absolutely. Throw it in the Discord. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start paying up royalties to Hilda Beast. Look at that. Anyways, TLDR. No, it is not a experimental vaccine or anything like that. And your refusal to listen to logic and people who know better is keeping this alive and increasing the probability that one of these variants will circumvent the vaccine, which all of us did, and now we're back at square zero. So just like kind of have like a moment to critically think about the stuff that you're saying and why you believe the things that you do, and does it actually make sense? Is it actually based on any type of science? No. The safety aspects of vaccines have not been thoroughly researched and was not have been thoroughly researched and was not experimental. The experimental part was not knowing exactly how effective it would be. Turns out they're extremely effective. True. Like there's exactly, and the technology behind it has already existed for quite some time. This just didn't fall out of the sky, right? Like we didn't just like, threw together some hodgepodge and just said, here you go. Like, that's not how we do things. Like, I don't know. Like, does it even make sense on the surface of it? Like, just think about it logically. Does it even make sense on the surface? And just like, oh yeah, let's just to do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. All right. And no, of course there's going to be thorough vetting and research behind it for over a decade, basically since knocking the genome at the turn of the century. Thank you, Danarchist. Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. We have had this type of technology for decades, or for over a decade. Thank you. Like, this isn't something that just fell out of the sky, okay? Holy yikes. The only way to end the death and suffering of COVID is to get millions of Americans vaccinated. I mean, like, this is it. Even Daddy Trump, yeah, even their Daddy Trump took the vaccine at the beginning, the moment it was available. January, he was already vaccinated. Boom, January. Listen to me, okay? If you want to do right by Daddy Trump, if you want to do right by all the effort he took to get this vaccine via Operation Warp Speed, why don't you be a real patriot and respect all the effort your daddy took, the tireless hours your daddy worked to get the totally serious, to get the vaccine out there, right? Why would you be so disrespectful to your Daddy Trump? He worked so hard to get that vaccine out, and he took it himself. He was one of the first people, obviously, in January. He was fully vaxxed. Huh? Why don't you honor Daddy Trump by getting the Trump vaccine? How about that? Daddy Trump literally invented it himself. He literally was in the lab, okay? Guys, he literally brought this to you. This was his gift. He knew. Alright, he knew. Because he's so smart and so intuitive that he knew. Okay? And he trusted it so much that he took it himself. He was one of the first people in January, along the first line, along with the doctors and all that. As a fact, you can go in there and try to convince him in chat. Lamau, no. Listen, my head hurts already. I can't do it. I can't do it. Right, if you're just gonna call me an idiot, that is encouraging, blah, blah, blah. Usually don't get anywhere by attacking people. Right, so my point is, I don't know, but we've gotta figure out what we can do, because, look, stories like this are true. Stories like this are so far, it's not just this one radio host, it's thousands of folks who are dying because of this illogical stance. It's sad. It's sad. So I hope that people understand, and I hope that people come to the realization that this is what we need to do to get out of this. The kappa was implied. The kappa was implied. It's sad because this is the result. And then we have people like this. Where is it? And then we have people like this. That is too much for people to comprehend. That's really what's happening. Theories to make them safe. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Tandera. I'm sure there's some level of that. And then we have people like this. People are so, like, committed to the grift. Oh, I think she did. I think she did. I think she did. Candace Owens doesn't believe in anything. But then again, this is the same person who, like, literally in the same sentence said she doesn't believe in climate change, but also never researched into the topic. So I don't know. This person is so empty, I can't even begin. I can't even begin to, like, to unpack that one. But we have people like this who are very popular, who are spewing this nonsense, and you know, that results in people believing this. It isn't easy to swim against such a polluted current, but here I am. I trust my gut more than I trust Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci had just about fuck all to do with the vaccine. He wasn't there, like, developing the vaccine, okay? Dr. Fauci did not develop this vaccine. Holy yikes. Like, you know that, right? Like, people know that, right? I hope people realize that, right? Dr. Fauci didn't make the vaccine. These right-wing commentators have the easiest jobs, I swear. True. True. I mean, Jesus Christ. It's unbelievably frustrating because, like, it's just straight up lies. It's just straight up lies. I bet we could all do the grift better than the right. True. I could for sure. I understand these right-wing positions. You literally, the first thing that you need to do is, like, leave your brain at the door and just, like, regurgitate. It's that simple. Alright. Well, this is, like, the real important story of today. Candace Owens around easy because Stacey Dash gave up on Trump. Huh. Yeah, it's easy to go on Twitter and say duh. Like, just it's so easy. Like, just deposit your brain at the door and let it be filled with whatever vapid, just become an empty shell. And, like, I don't know, like, leech off Dennis Prager or something. He's, like, incredibly rich. He'll give you all the funding you want. Just say whatever he wants. Or get, like, a job at the Daily Wire. Code Red for Humanity UN report gives stark warning on climate change, warns wild weather events will worsen. Yeah. I think chances are good we see some massive consequences of climate change within our lifetime, maybe even more deaths than the pandemic. Maybe. I bet I could do Tommy Lauren better than Tommy Lauren. That's funny. I forgot she was a thing. I think there's possibilities, Peter Parker. Hundreds of top scientists released a devastating report Monday on the danger that human-caused climate change poses to the world. Calling it Code Red for Humanity, the landmark report was released in Geneva, Switzerland by the UN IPCC. Many of the changes seen in the world's climate are unprecedented in thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, and some of these changes already set in motion, such as continued level sea rise, are irreversible or over hundreds of thousands of years. Wild weather events from storms to heat waves are also expected to worsen and becoming more frequent. In other words, hey, welcome to the new norm, folks. Climate change is already affecting every region on the Earth in multiple ways, and the changes that we experience will increase with additional warming. The evidence is clear that CO2 is the main driver of climate change, even as other greenhouses and air pollutants play a role. Greenhouse gases and air pollutants play a role. The 3,000-page report provides an unprecedented degree of clarity about the future of our planet and the need to reduce and ultimately eliminate our emissions of greenhouse gases. Yeah, the idea would be to just eliminate that altogether. Haywire, true. That's kind of cringe, my dude. Like, that's kind of cringe. The authoritative report, which calls climate change clearly human-caused and unequivocal, makes precise and warmer forecasts for the 21st century than it did last time in 2013. It was issued in 2013. If this IPCC report doesn't shock you into action, it should. The report paints a very sobering picture of the unforgiving, unimaginable world we have in store if our addiction to fossil fuels and destroying our forests continues. Destroying the forest for what? For farming, animal farming, animal agriculture. Absolutely cartoonish, true. One of the most striking takeaways is that we may reach 1.5 degrees of warming a decade earlier than the IPCC found. So in other words, the 1.5 degrees thing is a meme. Okay, it's gone. I think, in my opinion, it's gone. Let's try to mitigate and adapt because that's all we have left, and do what we can in the most aggressive manner possible to get off fossil fuels, among other things. Almost 200 countries have signed up with the Paris Accord, which aims to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius, ideally no more than 1.5 by the end of the century compared to pre-industrial times. The report projects that in the coming decades, climate change will increase in all regions. For 1.5 degrees of warming, there will be increased heat waves longer than warm seasons, shorter cold seasons at 2 degrees Celsius, extreme heats would more often reach critical tolerance thresholds for agriculture, which, yeah, that's going to be a huge problem if we can't grow food, or if we don't have access to water. And health, the report shows. Scientists have predicted the likelihood of accelerating climate change for more than a century now, yet too often their warnings have been disregarded. My hope is that the rigor, transparency, and unprecedented urgency of this latest IPCC report will make it simply impossible to ignore. Lamau, have you seen governments? Have you seen the aggressive action our government has taken? Yeah, me neither. Excellent prescription, Bread Crochet. While many other reports' predictions, what? Irrational hate? Wait. Saying that something is cartoonish and clickbaiting is irrational. Are you okay? Are you okay? While many of the report's predictions paint a grim picture of human impacts on the planet and consequences that will have going forward, IPCC also found that so-called tipping points, such as catastrophic ice sheet collapses, are low likelihood and they cannot be ruled out. Yeah. Not good. Not good. If you guys want the full IPCC report, I did post it on the Discord. I will post it in chat so you guys can look at it complete in its entirety. Because we are just on time. Oh, the target. Oh yeah, I too remember a YouTube Premium Champagne Socialist. I remember too when hate means that you just find something cartoonish and clickbaity. I can't. Okay, here we are. Please check that out in its entirety. I think that maybe we'll dedicate the entire Saturday stream, or maybe the entirety of one stream. Maybe tomorrow we'll dedicate the entire stream to going over this entire report, because this is incredibly important. And I think this should be a sobering moment. Realistically, theoretically, for those who think critically, will be a sobering moment and a huge red flag. Yeah, here's the quote that we just read. Here's the quote that we just read in the beginning. So I think we might dedicate tomorrow's stream to this. The heck? Why? Oh, this is the entire... Okay, I'm gonna save this because... Hold on, let me put it on the Discord. Because we're probably gonna have to dedicate an entire stream to this. Yes, we're gonna have to dedicate an entire stream to this. I already watched it. Excellent. That's awesome. I want to dedicate an entire stream to this. So if I can't do it tomorrow, maybe we should just Maybe we should just like dedicate one stream to the entirety of the IPCC report and one stream to reading to listening to the conference, because advertisers are using you and your attention as a product, much like the vaccine. What are you talking about? The vaccine? Oh god, why are these like anti-vaxxers in chat? Like, listen bro, please do some critical thinking. This vaccine is not the issue. I understand. Just please do your just please have some critical thinking about the positions that you have, and please think, is this making sense in any way, shape, or form? And if you don't know, that's okay. And if you don't know, that's okay. Simple as that. Alright folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. We will be reviewing more of this IPCC report tomorrow. So please make sure you join us tomorrow. Make sure you follow, like, comment, share, subscribe on the YouTubes. Join us on Discords. Do all the stuff. Peace and love. Thank you so much, Chai Beerka, for stopping by. Yeah, I know. It gets wild in here. Bye, have a good day. You have a good day. Do all the YouTubes, do all the social medias as always, please. Take care, please stay safe. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next stream tomorrow. See ya! Thank you, I appreciate that. You know what? Speaking of, Tory news. Alright, Tory news. It's that time already? Yep. Alright folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go! Have a great one. You have a great one.